Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here on time. Enjoy the Hanukkah donut. I'm jealous of you. I cannot have it. Ah. Welcome to lesson number 5. I would like to share some housekeeping. Number 1, last lesson will take place next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. It's the first night of Hanukkah. So we will have a 5:30 party at Siesta Key, and immediately at 6:30 I'll be coming here. So I might be here just on time, but the place you can enter and be here, hopefully will start on time. Number 2, you are invited to join us for Siesta Key Hanukkah celebration. The first night, there will be lots of fun, lots of food, as well as Sunday, the 29th, from 4 to 6, we have at Philippi Estate. You don't want to miss that. We have it's called the Pavilion, something Turtle Pavilion or something. It's a big pavilion, the same as last year. It's right next to the playground.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. The parking is the problem, isn't it?
It's Christmas night, so it's Christmas. I don't think there will be a problem. As we begin, I would like, Linda, you want to say something?
No, I was saying hi to
We were
her.
waving.
They were saying hi to
I
her.
wanted
to say hi to her. Sorry.
There's a song that says, I'm not waving, I'm drowning. In this case, I was waving.
You know about this guy that went fishing and his boat sunk, and they called for an emergency, and the emergency crew came with a helicopter, and the rescuer went down the rope and tried to rescue the person, and it didn't work out. He died. So when he came to report to the wife, she said to him, "What happened?" He says, "Well, we tried, and it just didn't work." She says, "How did you try?" He said, "Well, I was holding the rope and I say to him, 'Give me your hand, so I can pick you up.' And he was oblivious." She says, "Of course, he will give you nothing. You should have said, 'Grab my hand.'" He gives nothing. All right. A short introduction to last few weeks before we move on to the lesson tonight. I'm not sure if the lesson applies to you guys, so we'll find out. In lesson number 1, we discovered that our life, our body, is motivated by 2 engines: the godly soul and the animal soul. The godly soul wants to do what the mission is set. The godly soul wants to live for a purpose, while the animal soul wants only me. I want to have fun. I want to be respected. I want to have a big bank account. What's in it for me? So therefore, the animal soul couldn't care less about anyone outside of it, because it diminishes their joy and pride unless they can gain something. The godly soul, on the other hand, wants to connect, wants to fix relationship, wants to create relationship, because it helps the mission that God had sent us. And then we spoke about empathy, the difference between empathy versus sympathy. Empathy is putting myself in the shoes of the other and being there for that person, as opposed to sympathy. We learned that from Joseph. That's the example in the Torah where Joseph, despite his hardship and challenging life, it's in this week's Torah portion, yet when he saw a change in the face of the 2 ministers, who were his mates in jail, he immediately noticed that, but not it wasn't enough. He also turned to him and said, "What's wrong? Why are you so disturbed? Tell me, maybe perhaps we can assist." That's the lesson of empathy. Lesson 2, we discovered the difference between listening or hearing. When you hear, it's all about me. Am I going to learn something new? Am I going to get a chance to speak? Versus listening, which connects people. By listening, you tell somebody you are important. I care about what you say, even though I didn't learn anything and I heard it already 3 times before. That's the difference between listening and hearing. Lesson number 3, we spoke about the art of disagreement. We discovered 3 myths. I'm not going to go over all of them, but one of them is that if we have a disagreement in a relationship between siblings, employer, employee, we need to iron it out. We need to walk it through. And that's not true. Life is such a huge platform. There is space to move from the area of disagreement to another area where we can agree. So instead of fixing and trying to walk through all the hardship, just move away from it. You will enjoy the relationship. We also discovered that the fact that we disagree, just like our faces are not the same, otherwise life would be boring, so are our minds. They are unique, and we don't see eye to eye. Lesson number 4, we discovered the art of positivity. The fact that by default, our mind, our head and heart are created to always remember and find challenging difficulties with the other. If they did 5 things correctly and 1 thing was incorrect, they don't know what they're doing. If they were late 1 time out of 20 times, they're always late. That's the way we're created. How do we defeat? How do we fight it? Rambam Maimonides right that by doing continuous action in the opposite, it will change my heart. How do I do that? Continuously finding positivity, speaking and thinking about it, and doing things about it. So whenever I'm in a relationship, a child, a sister, a mother, and they do something good, I cherish it by sharing with them how good it feels, how important they are to me, how nice of them. This way we learn to push away the negativity. So negativity bias will be defeated through positivity bias. This is the 4 last lessons. Any questions so far? Tonight we are going to speak about what happens when somebody does something in my relationship, any of the 4 cycles. It may be a member of the congregation or the club, it may be a neighbor, it may be a child, it may be a spouse, it may be a professional, a relationship, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. It doesn't matter. If we feel that we are hurt, how do we share with them to make sure they are willing to accept criticism? Now, we are not talking about someone who hurt us to a severe situation where there is a break or a crack in the relationship. At such point, if there is a need for forgiveness, it will be the discussion of lesson 6. Lesson 6 will learn how to relate to someone that offended us so severely that forgiveness is required. And it's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes the relationship should be severed. But in case the relationship should continue, how do we forgive? To learn how to forgive. We are dealing tonight with minor issues. Minor issues means some people would say, live and let live. Move on, forget about what they said or they did, and try to let go of it. Judaism and life tells us that it's not going to go away. It hurts, and we want to walk it through. How do we criticize? Now, I'm sure nobody here criticizes anybody. I'm the only one, so I'm speaking to myself tonight. But you're going to be the audience. So, what did I do wrong? Here are the conversations that are, we call it difficult conversation to reprove somebody. Imagine the spouse is too much time on the phone. I'm not going to say who, the husband and wife. Somebody is on the phone for too long, and it takes a toll on the family. Number two, a teenage son or daughter is failing academically. They don't pass tests. Number three, a friend has said insensitive things to others. He's making fun of Ukrainians, he's making fun of Russians, he's making fun of different ethnic groups. This is offensive and it's not right. We should not be quiet. We need to heal with a child. It's my responsibility. With my spouse, the relationship is not going to continue in a healthy way. And as well is about making comments that are inappropriate. A neighbor's yard is often messy and affects me because all the, what do you call them? The animals that come to the garbage when there is raccoons. All the raccoons end up in my yard because the droppings of the raccoons is because of his messy yard. Or he decides to feed all the ravens and I get all the droppings in my yard. And finally, a co-worker is constantly late or underperforming. We are assigned a project. We share a desk or an office. I keep my desk clean. They are always a mess, and it bothers me. I am unable to live, to work properly. The coffee station, they don't know how to keep themselves clean after. They leave the spoon, they pour a few drops, and they open up the sugar packet and they leave it right on the table. It's something that's not right. And just to forget about it and move on is not going to happen. These are the ones that are, so don't talk to me about cheating or about abuse or about substance abuse, because these are going to be the topic of next lesson, where we're going to deal with whether to begin with, we should continue the relationship, and then how do we learn to forgive if they are willing to change. But right now, it's something that bothers us about them. In society in general, I hope you can agree with me that people don't like to accept criticism. Anybody can give me a reason. Oh, you know what? I'll ask you a different question. Do you accept criticism? Who said no? Why not? It hurts. Why does it hurt? Are they making up stories?
No, because it's.
Are they exaggerating? No, it's the truth. Oh, the truth hurts?
Yeah. Very much.
Ah, the truth hurts. Okay.
We're perfect, Rabbi, so we don't want to hear what we do wrong.
Anybody else?
Well, if it was coming from the wife, it's always acceptable. You say yes, honey.
Okay.
But there's other chances.
You just can't say anything.
I would say that it depends on how it's said in context, because sometimes I really, if it's said in the right way, it's like, oh, okay. I got it.
What makes criticism said in the right way that will be effective?
If I feel like the person cares about it, it
And
seems a little bit different.
and he says empathy, right?
Maybe that's.
If you feel the person cares about you, you will accept criticism.
Yeah.
Most of the time. If they don't care about you, you don't care about the criticism, huh?
You should.
You should have?
You
What?
shouldn't care about.
You
the
should
person.
not care about them. So I have some news for you. From the day one, when God created men, they refused to accept criticism. When Adam was asked, why did you not listen to me by eating from the tree of knowledge? What does Adam do?
She made me do it.
She made me do it. It's not my fault. refuse, and when he turned to Eve, don't think that she is more a big tzaddik. What did she say? The serpent made me do it.
Even though the bus is, I just got run over by one.
Okay, so the idea of criticism is something that no one likes. Here is the Talmudic discussion on criticism. Elizabeth, can you read text 1?
Think of an
No, not that.
the other one, yeah. Rabbi Tarfon explained, I wonder if there's anyone in this generation who knows how to accept critique. If one person tells another, remove the silver from between your teeth, the second retorts, remove the beam from between your eyes. Rabbi Elazar ben Azari commented, I wonder if there's anyone in this generation who knows how to properly provide critique.
So here are 2 points in the Talmud. There are 2 separate points, and I just want very briefly to explain them. The first Rabbi Tarfon, says, no one should criticize today because the listener will never accept it. As soon as you say something to him that he don't like to hear, what do? They react defensively. Don't say that to me, you are worse. Fix yourself first. You talk about a toothpick between my teeth, you have a beam between your eyes. So it's a famous phrase in Aramaic. So just take care of yourself before you speak to me. So he puts the onus of criticism not working because the listener will never be willing to listen. He's putting a shield and stopping all the arrows that are directed towards him. We will develop this later on to a much greater detail. Rabbi Elazar says something else. He says that the fault of no criticism is accepted has nothing to do with the listener. It's about the one who gives criticism. Those people don't know how to criticize. Had they known how to criticize, it would be accepted. Based on those 2, we are going to develop our lesson tonight. And as I said, I don't think there's something new for you because you know how to criticize, I assume, but I'm speaking about myself. So before just a short introduction. In our society, in American society, in the Western democracy, if I see someone drowning, I'm going to jump to save that person. If someone is hurt, right away I'll help them, right? If someone carries a shopping bag, and it's too heavy, you right away said, can I help you? I go on a plane a lot of times. Recently, it happened to me. A person is unable to lift the suitcase. If you are a man and you're a mensch, first you get up and say, can I help you? That's acceptable, right? If I offered help to put the suitcase over the overhead, will somebody criticize me or not?
Yeah.
They will praise me, right?
Yeah.
But when,
Hopefully.
most of the times. But what happens when someone is challenged mentally? Mentally, they make the wrong decisions. They don't find themselves. And God forbid I should offer them help. You know what will happen? They will say to me, mind your own business. They will criticize me. They will tell me, this is not your life, that's my life, and let me live my life in the way I want. Unless the person is about to harm themselves seriously or others, we have no right to interfere. We have no right to assist. We have no right to suggest, because doing so, you're infringing on their privacy. Is that correct? Do we agree on that? Why we call it, why overstepping the boundaries? Politically incorrect. You cannot do something or say something to somebody just because they are not well or they're making their own choices. Judaism tells you the way the obligation to help someone is exactly equal to helping them physically. So if I see someone who is struggling with any kind of behavior, they have an issue with anger, they have an issue with lateness, they have an issue with not keeping their words. I have an obligation, just like I have an obligation to help someone lift a suitcase over the overhead, I have an obligation to help them, and they should be able to accept my criticism, so they should learn. So in Judaism, we don't say live and let live. In Judaism, we say live and make sure others live a full life. And as soon as they do not live a full life, because they don't know how to live a full life, spiritually and mentally, it is my duty to do so, to assist them, just like in the material objects, we are obligated to assist. And it is stated in one of the 613 commandments. For the sake of time, God tells us, shall you reprove your brother? In other words, one of the 613 commandments are, if I see someone violating a Torah law, someone who disrespecting another, someone who does not keep the word, someone who is cheating, I have an obligation to say to him, don't do it, it's not acceptable. So, in the Western culture, they say, it isn't my place to reprove others. I am going to be there to help you. If you are unable to carry the potatoes or the apples you bought in Costco, let me help you. Let me get you a car. But God forbid, if I see that you're cheating in business, or you call a company and you lie to them, if I tell you, please don't do it, you're cheating, you're wasting your life, you're not doing what God told you, I am here infringing on your life, and it's not acceptable. Judaism say it is my duty to reprove others. As soon as I see it, as we'll discover in great details, I have no choice but to try to help someone behave and act properly. This is the introduction to the lesson. Any questions? You guys are very silent tonight. Marilyn, no questions? Okay.
Not right now.
We're just starting.
This is a warm-up.
Yes. Well, we don't want to reprove you for taking too long.
Good point. Here is an overview. In order for me to reprove, to criticize, there has to be 4 rules must apply in order for the listener to be willing to accept. We are going to go over all 4 of them in details and prove you why they are so important. Number 1, guiding with love. You must, what does Linda said? When it depends who says it to you, when someone you cares about you, when you love somebody and you express your love to them, when you reprove them, they will accept it. Number 2, guiding with gentleness. We will discover the tone and the words we use. We cannot use assertive words. We have to be using gentle words and gentle tone. Only then there is a chance someone will be willing to listen. So the fact that it bothers me to my bones will not make a difference to the other person unless I love the person and I speak out of gentleness. Number 3, guiding with humility. In order for me to speak to someone and they are willing to accept the words, I must use humility. I must be very humble and not put myself above them. Every one of those 3, we will share a case or story from the Torah, from the Bible, and show the details of the stories, how there is a difference between using humility or not. And last one is guiding with positivity. When we criticize or reprove somebody, it is for the purpose of bringing the positivity out of them. When we do that, there is a much greater chance of them listening, rather than just putting them down. You're bad, you didn't do the right thing, you'll be ashamed of yourself, etc. These are the 4 points, and then we're going to talk about one more point that's not listed here. But these are the 4 points that we use if a child is failing tests, if a spouse is too long on the phone, if the neighbor does not keep their yard properly, if a coworker is messy or not on time, and if someone is using, for example, uses language which is unacceptable, we have a duty in the Torah to reprove, and yet we need to be extremely careful if we want the words to have an impact. Because you know what happens when you criticize? and it works the other way around, the other person becomes defensive, and then it creates a rift in the relationship. So not only it doesn't help us, but it makes it even worse. The only chance we have is to do all those out of love, gentleness, humility, and positivity. I'm skipping the some of the text for the sake of coming to covering all the topics. So I'm going to show it you a story. By the way, the lesson is going to be on YouTube. So you have this on YouTube. Anybody heard of Bilam? What do you know about Bilam? Let's do it quick. What do you know about Bilam? Bilam was a prophet. How holy prophet was he? Equal to Moshe. Equal to Moshe. Bilam was hired to do what? To curse the Jewish people. What does he do instead? He blesses them, right? The Midrash is asking, after all, Bilam was a prophet. He delivered God's message. Why God gives the blessing to the Jewish people through an arch enemy of the Jewish people, and the curses and the criticism through Moshe, who loved the Jewish people no more than anybody else. He put his life against, and he was willing to sacrifice his life for the Jewish people. Yet Moshe, if you read the story of Moshe, half the time he criticizes the Jewish people. Even when he wants to bless them, Azinu Hashamayim, the one before the last portion, the third from last, it's one chapter, chapter 32, 49 verses, I believe. He said, come and hear my words, and immediately he started criticizing them. You disobey God, you misbehave, God is keep showering you with blessing, and you kick the bucket. I know for you, children will be the same, grandchildren. I know for the end of time, you always misbehave. He continuously criticizes them. How come someone who loves the Jewish people is not the one assigned to bless the Jewish people? Let Bilam criticize the Jewish people. Why did God reverse the roles? They both live at the same time. They both spoke to the same people. Says the Midrash. And you have it in text number 3. Herman, can you read?
3. 200.
Page
Would
200.
not have been more appropriate for critique to emerge from the mouth of Bilam, blessing from the mouth of Moses. However, if Bilam had provided critique, the Jewish people would have dismissed it, claiming the person who hates us, critiquing us. If Moses had offered blessing, other nations would have downplayed and argued the person who loved them is blessing them. God before declared, let Moses who loved them and let Pharaoh who hates them provide them with blessing.
Did you understand that? God reversed the roles, and the reason is, if Bilam were to criticize the Jewish people, no one would take him seriously, even though it's a prophet that delivers God's message. Because you hate me, that's why you say that. So we will be very defensive. We will create a shield to protect ourselves and turn the arrows back at the speaker. Therefore, God reversed the roles and says, who is going to bless the Jewish people? Bilam, who hates the Jewish people. Part of his prayer blessing, by the way, is in a daily prayer. Every morning we begin the prayer, the morning prayer, Matovu Alecha Yaakov. It's a blessing that Bilam, a goy that hated the Jewish people, gave. But Moshe, he loves the Jewish people. He's the one that there is a small chance they will accept. And that's why God chose Moshe to criticize Jewish people. Here is another example. The book of Proverbs tells us that when, here it is, text number 6. Ivan, can you read text number 6?
Proverb teaches us, listen, my child, to the critique of your father, and similarly, those who love their children are diligent to critique them. These verses link critique to a child-parent relationship, thereby informing us that all critique must resemble with direction parents provide to their children.
Let's stop right here. The book of Proverbs tells us, listen, O child, to the rebuke of the critique of your father. Why does he use child and father? What about two partners, the teacher, the rabbi? Says the Rebbe, one way to explain it is he's talking about parents raising children. But in a much grander scale, the message here from King Solomon is, when you criticize somebody, you have to treat him like your own child. And you love children, your children, you have to express it in the criticism. In other words, loving someone before criticizing them is not an option. It's a prerequisite. That's why King Solomon tells us about criticism, he's comparing a father to a child. Did you understand that? I want to show it you an example. Anybody heard of Noah? God, was he a tzaddik or was he a righteous man or not? He was a righteous man. So God tells them, you are righteous, I'm going to assign you a job. Build an ark. How long did it take him to build the ark? 120 years. Why did it take him so long? Huh?
He didn't have powers?
There was a Home Depot. And Amazon delivered to every spot of the universe. Some told me because of the county's regulations. But
He was paid by the hour.
he was paid by the hour. That's, you know what? You are so on target. God really paid him by the hour. But 120 years. The rabbis tell us that he did it in the center of town so that the passerbyers would stop by and ask, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're building a boat? Build it by the water, next to your deck. He has a waterfront property. Build it over there. And he would say to them, God is creating a place to save me because I conduct myself properly, and he's going to wash the entire universe. You're going to die unless you change. Was he effective in his, and that's the reason God told him to take his time, so he can affect or try to influence others. He was criticizing them. Was he effective or not? No. How many, was he 1%? Zero, not a single person. Mere 10 generations later, his great-great-grandson, Abraham, recognized God, finds God, and he turns around and he tells people, there is a God, forget the idols that you worship. And he was so effective that he converted thousands of people. The Torah tells us when God tells him at the age of 75 to leave his hometown and go to a place that he will show him, it says that he left with anefesh asher asu becharan, all the souls, all the people that they have converted. So this is 120 years. This is not even 75 years. This is much less because maybe he started at the age of 40 till the age of 75. So it's 30 years. He was able to convert thousands of people. Why is this difference? Why? How come Noah was unsuccessful and Abraham was? The rabbi tell us that Noah was speaking from top to bottom without any emotions. He did it because he was commanded by God to do so. And that's the way it came out. So nobody cares. Nobody listened. Nobody accepted criticism. Abraham, on the other hand, he knew he was obligated to make people stop worshiping idols, but he did it out of love. He cared about them. He loved them, and therefore it was very effective. So here we have a second example of a major distinction between Noah and Abraham. The first one is Bilam and Moshe. Bilam was to bless the Jewish people. Moshe, who loves the Jewish people, assigned by God to criticize them. The second one is Noah and Abraham. Noah was totally unsuccessful. Abraham was very, very successful because he did it out of love, but he was unsuccessful because he didn't. Yes?
Is it? That Bible also compared 40 years with the generations.
So,
So if it's
if Noah did it over 120 years, he did it basically over 3 generations for people to think, maybe I won't save myself, but I can save my child, my grandchild. It was like he was appealing to their.
Well, I just want to comment that those days they lived much longer. So 40 years generation was after the flood.
Oh, okay.
Only after the God shrunk the age of man to 120.
He was
Oh,
still a teenager at 120.
They were just starting their life. How old was Noah when he started building the ark?
But 400.
500. 500 years. 500 years of age. All right. Did I cover enough about love? Herman, did I cover enough about love? Before I criticize, I have to love you. If I'm about to tell you something that I feel needs to change, I have to make sure you know that I love you. Otherwise, it's a waste of my energy and time. There is one more component to the idea of love. The reason we do it is because I put the other person ahead of myself. I care about you, I love you. So therefore, I want you to change, to stop doing, to do more, whatever it is. And therefore, there is the other component to show that we care and love is to find the right timing. We don't have enough time to talk about it. But the Mishnah tells us in text number 7, you are not allowed to console someone who lost a dear one while the person is not yet buried. Jewish law forbids us from comforting or showing consolation to someone who had lost a dear one unless we have to wait until after burial. If someone died and the children are very disturbed and I want to comfort them, I want to be there for them, give them a hug, say to them, I'm sorry for you. Jewish law says that you should refrain from doing so as long as the body is not yet being buried. Why? Because until that point, they are so angered or so upset about what is going on that their mind cannot fathom anything else, and any word, anything you say will only agitate them. After burial, they realize that reality hits. But some people, by the way, even after burial, they refuse to accept that, especially young people who died, etc. Sometimes when a person is in a situation where they are unable to accept comfort or consolation, it is forbidden from doing so. Why? Because if I love the person, I want to do what's good for him. And if I want to do what's good for him, you have to find the right time. So if I am to criticize my child, and this is not a good time for him because he already got criticism from his mother, or he already got criticized by his teacher, there is no right for me, even though I have to, that's my duty. Remember, I gave you 6 examples. Wait for him to come down and ask him, is this a good time to talk? It's not going to be a pleasant talk. But do you think it's a good time? If he says no, you got to wait for the right time. Why? Because you love the person.
The soul is still around.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the soul. It has to do with the fact that the person is very agitated. At this point, he's very upset, and he cannot accept any consolation. Simple as that.
Because their emotions are wrong.
Right. The emotions are very raw. Yes, correct. So again, the first point before I move to second is when you want to criticize somebody, realize you have to express that you love them. Only when you love them, there is a chance they will remove the shield and be willing to listen. So if I have an employee who is always late, if I do not express how much I love them, we love according to the circle. Each circle has different level of love. But I love what they do. I appreciate what they are achieving here. That's when you are able to say, please dress properly. Please be on time. Please don't raise your voice. Please respond in such a way on the phone, etc. But going straight and say, that's not the way to speak over the phone, or that's not the way you should have been here on time, it will not be accepted. People will do not accept the criticism. And you know why they don't accept the criticism? We might get to it even soon again, is because when you criticize, you minimize them. You tell them they are unworthy. You tell them they are less than what they are. And by doing so, they refuse, naturally, they refuse to accept that. And therefore, they challenge you back. They would throw back those arrows. Who are you to tell me what to do? Or you have a bigger problem than that. In other words, I'm not less than you are. And when we do it out of love, we diffuse that defensive mechanism. Let's move on to the next one. So again, I want to make sure you know, love is a prerequisite for criticism, but timing is part of loving somebody. If I do not do it in the right time, no matter what I say, no matter how I sugarcoat it, it will not work. It has to be in the right mindset. Just like when someone died and I want to show care for the children or the family or the widow, the house, or the widower, I have to make sure it's the right timing. The same is when it comes to criticizing. We need to make sure that the listener is in a comfortable mood and is able to accept criticism. Let's move to the next one. So that's how you guide somebody with love. King Solomon tells us that when you guide or criticize somebody, obey the child, listen to your father. All form of critique must be akin to a parent's critique, a parent to his child. Here is a story, a little movie, about the Rebbe explaining how to do it with love, how to criticize with love. I'm going to test you on that short video afterward.
Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the sixth Chabad Rebbe, often used anecdotes and examples to convey deep truths. In 1940, after escaping Nazi Europe, he arrived in America and quickly began inspiring a spiritual revival. One of his emissaries was Rabbi Shalom Ber Gordon, who in the summer of 1948 was sent to serve as a rabbi in Newark, New Jersey. Rabbi Gordon knew that to effect change, he would need to guide, correct, and critique. However, he was warned that typical forms of critique would alienate his congregation. Unsure of how to proceed, he sought advice from the Rebbe. To his surprise, the Rebbe asked him if he had ever visited a Russian sauna or banya. Rabbi Gordon confirmed that he had, and the Rebbe asked him to describe it. Rabbi Gordon explained that in the banya, visitors ascend bleachers to experience increasing levels of steam intensity. After an individual is thoroughly heated, they happily submit to having a besom, branches and leaves moistened in hot water, struck repeatedly against their back. The Rebbe then asked his emissary to imagine someone striking a random fellow on the street with the same besom. Certainly, the horrified victim would use all means to fend off their attacker. But why is it that this treatment is welcome in a sauna that would be rejected if done on the street? The answer is that the sauna's atmosphere is one of camaraderie, and its attendees are first warmed up and elevated. In this context, the attendees not only invite besom lashing, but they even plead for more. Critique, when offered randomly, can feel like a sidewalk assault. But critique offered under sauna-similar conditions is not only acceptable, but even appreciated. In a sauna relationship, the parties share a strong sense of togetherness. The relationship is very warm, and it undergoes periodic elevations as each party seeks to improve and to enhance their mutual connection. In such an atmosphere, a critique is neither delivered nor received as a critique, but as a loving gesture. The receiving party may even request additional prods of inspiration.
All right, did you understand what, so if I take the besom, Vinyik, It's literally a broom. Bezem in Yiddish is, bezem in Russian is broom, no? In Yiddish too. If I take it and I slap somebody's back in the middle of the street, they're gonna take me to jail. But when they're in the sauna, they will invite it and they pay for it. Not only that, they ask for more and more and more. What happened? Because their body is warmed up and they are in a place where they want that type of heating, so to say. Said so in the Rebbe, you go into a new community in New York and you're dealing with American Jews. American people don't like to be criticized because everybody has the right for their life. But if you get closer and warm them up and give them the honor and the love they deserve, they would ask for criticism. They would ask how to repair. They would ask how to change, just like the story of the son. So this concludes our first point with love. If I want to criticize, I think I told you, this is a lesson for me because I don't do any of what says here. Don't think I'm an angel. But the first thing when we critique needs to be done is to express love, bonding, connecting, realizing it's the right timing for that person. Only then the person will open up and invite criticism because they see that you care about them and you want them to improve, to be better, to achieve more, and it will work, guaranteed. Any questions to this? Yes. I have already had Russian sauna, and what do you call the cold water?
Oh, it's cold plunge.
Huh?
Cold plunge.
Cold plunge, we have one. Why is it different?
The word cold versus hot.
If the animal, very brief, if the animal soul does the criticism, it's all about, you hurt me, you're late, you're wasting my time. It's all about me. The person hearing that makes to be felt that he is not as good as I am. And they reject that, they're not interested. If it's on the godly soul, it's all about you. I care about you, I want you to be better. If I love you, you will sense it and you'll be willing to accept. Let's talk about number 2. We call it gentleness. If I want to make sure to criticize, I need to understand that the persons refuse to accept what I have to say. And therefore, here is a technique 2 rabbis used. I'm going to show it you in the introduction. 2 brothers, famous rabbi, Reb Zusha and Rabbi Elimelech. When they would hear, I'm going to test you to find out why it worked. They would want to criticize someone, they would go over to him and ask them to be invited for dinner. He would invite them for dinner. While enjoying dinner, they would turn to one another, and one would say to the other, last night you missed prayer. Why did you miss prayer? They knew exactly what the host's faults and what the problems with the host are, and they would apply it to one of the brothers to the other, and the other would say, oh, I'm so sorry. Can you, I'll try not to repeat. Can you help me fix it? And by going back and forth, what fix and how to fix, it will awaken the host to realize that he has the same issues and he would ask how to correct himself. And it worked. And my question to you would be why it worked. So I'm going to ask Ina, it's your turn to read text number 9. Page 208.
The numerous outlying villages in which very few Jews live, typically 2 or 3 lonely Jewish families per village. Back in those days, these Jewish households usually earned their living through peddling food and alcohol to local peasant populations. The overwhelming majority of these Jews were simple and uneducated. Many were pure-hearted and God-fearing individuals, but due to the abysmal moral standards of their local environments, some of these Jews adopted ways that were less than desirable. The Maggid of Mezerich would dispatch the same brothers to these villages so that they could encourage and strengthen their fellow Jews and their Torah observance and awe of heaven. The brothers chose a unique method of operation. Rabbi Zusha would deliberately address his brother loud enough for the nearby Jewish villager, the true target of their efforts, to overhear their conversation. He would lament to his brother that he had failed in several ways, describing precisely the matters in which he noticed this Jewish villager was failing. Overhearing this conversation, the villager would be struck with powerful feelings of regret, telling himself, "Didn't I do all the same things myself?" The villager would continue listening eagerly as Rabbi Elimelech proceeded to inform Rabbi Zusha of the methods through which the latter was able to rectify these particular transgressions. The eavesdropping villager would take Rabbi Elimelech's words to heart and return to the proper path.
Did you understand the story? Why? Why this method was done? Why shouldn't they speak to the person and say, you did not put on tefillin yesterday? You yelled at your wife in public. Why did they have to go to that? Yes, Ivan?
Elizabeth was first.
No, that's. okay,
Elizabeth?
you can go. I'll go later.
Yeah, so because when somebody's discussing any faults and the bystander stands there, he's not offended in any way,
Exactly.
He's not offended. Why is he not offended?
because it's not direct.
It's indirect.
Exactly.
Why is, if it's direct, they are offended?
Because you're lowering their ego.
It's an attack. Whenever I criticize someone, I speak negatively about them, there are two things happen. First, I put them down. Attacking them, I make them feel that they are not as good as who they are. And number two, I'm trying to control them. When I criticize them, it is a form of control. Therefore, a person will put a shield and he right away say, I'm not going to let you control me. So if someone tells me, yesterday you promised to be here at 10 o'clock and you weren't, I right away says, don't tell me that, it's not true. I don't care what you say, or you yourself are always late. Why do I say that? Because by saying that, he's trying to control me, and I don't want to let someone control me. I also don't want someone to put me down. An attack, criticism is an attack at my personality. What happened when they spoke about between themselves? You call it indirect. I say there is no attacking and there is no control. They're not speaking about the man. They did, but they wanted to do it in a roundabout so that the person, they bypass the defense mechanism. They eliminate all the dominance, the control over that person, and they did not attack him personally because they talked between themselves. He, upon hearing and realizing that's exactly his problem, would be willing to listen. What do we learn from it, says the Rebbe? That you have to be extremely gentle to show that you're not about controlling them and you're not about putting them down. So it's not enough to show that I love you, because that's important. You also must be gentle in the criticism. How are you gentle? Here it is. Text number 10. Who can you read? Please. Text number 10, page 210.
Gently in a private. Use soft and plead with your intended audience to realize that you have been good in mind. If you do this, you will be free of blame. By contrast, if you rebuke them in an angry voice and with rage, and you're thereby shame them, then you are blameworthy, and you your audience will not accept your words. Such is human nature. If someone is approached forcefully, they will counter with forcefulness of their own and refuse to concede. King Solomon is the wise, therefore declares, softly spoken word of the wise are heard.
In other words, if I want to criticize, be gentle and soft. So you don't always have this mechanism of two strangers who speak about the same exact issue, but realize that there is a defense mechanism because the person feels attacked. The person feels that you're controlling them. Therefore, when you use soft, gentle voice, it will diminish that issue. Here is another text to the same point. Vince, can you read?
You want me to do it in Russian?
No.
Well, I can,
Let's
maybe, but maybe next time.
Okay. Andre, can you read?
Yes.
Text number 11.
Negative talk. Don't magnify the wrong by informing the individual you seek to redirect. You committed really big sin. Your guilt is truly heavy. Such words will weigh heavily upon the recipient, prompting them to lash out against you in response. Instead, address them with love. Tell them, my friend, it seems to me that you made a mistake. Use this kind of gentle phraseology and soft language so that your message will be accepted.
So what the rabbi tells us, when you criticize somebody, don't say you were messed up so big, or it will take me 50 years to fix it. In fact, use gentle words, say, I think, or it feels, or it look like, and then say, I know it's not such a big deal, but it's still important. In other words, don't exaggerate, but minimize the issue. Just a minute. This way, there is a good chance they will not create a defense mechanism. They will be willing to accept criticism. Yes.
I just want to say additional because that for the relationship, if you have a partner or you work with somebody in a project, like I was today dealing with one of my coworkers, trying to tell them what can be changed. It's like also a critique, and it's you have to use really the right words because
Exactly. Thank you. So guidance with gentleness is bypass, eliminate dominance. When you use the tone or the assertiveness, the words that are assertive, I am sure, or you caused a lot of trouble, you are creating by the person a shield that they refuse to listen to you. But if you use a gentle tone and you use a words that are maybe, I don't know how big, there is a chance they will listen to you. Can we move on to the next one? I'm not big at gentleness, just.
I disagree. You do it all the time. You're always saying it's me, it's not you. I'm at the fault. When you're teaching, you do it all the time.
All right, I don't think I do it enough, okay?
Okay.
That was a criticism.
You're always doing it. It's me that has
All I can say is that I grew up in a country where this does not exist, period. The best way to have a relationship is by yelling and screaming.
Always sound like they want to kill each other.
So this is literally upside down.
But this wisdom comes from that country.
Ah,
This wisdom comes from that country.
no,
No?
I wish they followed the Torah.
So,
As soon,
Soft
yeah, but
spoken word.
unfortunately, the people live in that country today have a lot to learn. So again, love, you must express with love. And number two, gentleness. Gentleness, the tone and the words. If there is no gentleness, they will feel that you are controlling them and you are attacking their personality, and they will not let, no matter how correct you are, you miss the bus because of them. They promised and they didn't deliver. It doesn't matter. If you want them to ever change, you have to be very gentle and make sure that they know you're not attacking them, and make sure they know that you're not controlling them, but you just hope that your relationship with them will be a stronger one if they are able to listen.
It's like in public speaking, when you're speaking to people and you try to lower their filters by connecting with them, then the information you speak is intaken well.
Right.
If you say something negative and the guard go up,
They're not
you're
listening.
wasting your time, yeah.
So criticism is creating a shield. Anytime you criticize, they put a shield and they want to fight back. Even if you're 100% correct, it doesn't matter. With love and gentleness, you have a good chance. Let's talk about number 3. Humility. Again, we go to the Bible. I'm going to give you an introduction so you can read it quick. There are 2 prophets who were signed by God to do the same thing. One ended up dead and did not change the people, and the other words are accepted and the people change. The Jewish people were afflicted with idol worship. They worship idols. God is sending a prophet called Zechariah. It's not the Zechariah from the Bible that you know. It's a different Zechariah. And God sends him to criticize, to tell the people that if they do not stop worshiping idols, they will be punished by God, expelled and sold as slaves. You know what the Jewish people did to him? They actually murdered him. 700 years earlier, there was another prophet called Yechaziel. Yechaziel was sent by God for the same people for the same crime, idol worship. And he warns them that God will punish them severely. What happens to them? They accept his words and they are changing their habits, they are changing their behavior. The Medrash is contrasting those 2 and asking, how come when one was speaking God's word about idol worship, they respected it and they obey, they changed, while the other, they couldn't care less and they actually killed the messenger. They murdered Zechariah. Here it is in the text number 12. Contrasting spirits. Gloria, can you read?
Spirit of God enveloped Zechariah, son of Yehoiada, the priest, and he stood above the people. Did he literally walk above the heads of the people? Rather, the phrase indicates that he considered himself greater than all the people. After all, he was the king's son-in-law, a priest, a prophet, and a judge. He therefore began to speak arrogantly and told them, why do you transgress God's commandments? It will not succeed. Immediately, they conspired against him and stoned him to death by the king's command. Yahaziel, by contrast, did not behave this way. Rather, it is reported that the Spirit of God was upon Yahaziel in the midst of the assembly. What does in the midst of the assembly imply? That he considered himself an equal of the assembly.
So here you have it on the board. Zechariah, when he criticized them, it turned violent. They killed him. Yechaziel, when he criticized them, they prompt change. They were willing to change. Says the Medrash, if you read, it says Zechariah stood above the people. What do you mean stood above the people? Was he taller? He stood on a platform? It means that he made himself feel, and he spoke to the people from top to the bottom. He's the son-in-law of the king, he's a priest, he's a judge, and he's not an idol worshiper. So he's better than they are. And that's how he preached. That's how he spoke to them. What's the result? Nobody listens, even though he delivered God's words. There was no humility. Yechaziel, the other prophet, he was an idol worshiper, but he was part of the people, and he told them, we are all in the same boat. We are all sinners. We all disobey God. And God is warning that if we don't change, now he's including himself with the rest of the population. They're willing to open up and listen. So if I want to make my message come across when it comes to criticism, one of the critical points are to make myself be an equal footing with the person I'm criticizing. If I come from top to the bottom, it's not going to work. So when I criticize my child, I make sure to make them feel as if I'm on their level. So I say to them, tell me how you feel. Tell me what your perspective. Tell me something so that he feels that I'm listening and his point of view is taken. Humility is crucial because even if it's God's word, if there is no humility, you come from top down, it's not going to be accepted.
How would you define humility?
By being included in with the same. So when I tell a child is shared with you, and I do it all the time, when I'm about to criticize or there is a reprimanding a child, I first will make him feel important. And I lower myself. I'm not saying to him, I'm your daddy and that's my duty and I'm going to make sure you realize that, and not enough to love him. I just say to them, tell me how you feel, how's your day, what's your point of view, and I take it into consideration. And I say to him, I understand that. Now I need you to hear my viewpoint. So I humble myself to his level. At least that's the way I see it. And this way he's willing to negotiate, so he's not blocking the criticism. All we are doing tonight is realizing that criticism creates a shield because it's an attack and it's trying to minimize or lower the person's individuality or personality. And therefore, when it comes out of love, and we do it in the right time, and we do it, what's the number 2? Anybody? Huh? What is with gentleness? And now, out of humility, I lower myself to make sure he knows I'm not better than him, and I'm not here to make a difference between me and him, that he's not as good as I am. There is a chance you'll listen. Any questions to that? I want to move to number 4. That's why the Torah tells us, when the Torah teaches us about reproof or to criticize somebody, the Torah reads, reprove, you shall reprove your fellow. The word reprove appears twice. Anybody who's been to the Talmud this week, we spoke about another text that appears twice. Ocheach tochiach et amitecha. Reprove, shall you reprove your fellow. Why does it say twice? So one rabbi say, the Torah speaks in a language of humanity, human's language. A person speaks, sometimes they add extra words. Another rabbi in the Hasidic Kabbalistic interpretation is, reprove yourself, shall you reprove the other. Before, and we're going to get to it in a moment, before you start criticizing somebody else, turn inward and start criticizing yourself, because they realize, as we'll discover in a moment, that whatever happens, whatever you see, is a message for me. Something is going in me that needs change. Once I humble myself to realize that it's a message for me, I'm able to connect with the other person because I'm coming from a different point of view, as we'll see examples. That's text number 13a, and here is 13b explaining it. Paige, can you read 13b, please?
We must truly include ourselves in the words of critique we supply to others. The Torah therefore directs us, if we translate the verse literally, reprove, you shall reprove your fellow. This means reprove yourself when you shall reprove your neighbor. Indeed, the Torah further clarifies, do not bear a sin upon him. do not consider that the sin he committed is only upon his shoulders and not upon yours as well.
And the rabbis tell us, look over here. Before you start with somebody else, reprove yourself. Because what you see, the dirt you see on his face is actually a reflection of who you are. It's a mirror of who you are. We are looking at people when we see a fault or a difficulty or a challenge, it's a reflection of who I am. That's text number 14. Linda, can you read?
Being small to another is like gazing into a mirror. If one face is dirty, we observe a dirty face. I think if our face is dirty, we observe a dirty face. If our face is clean, we observe a clean face. And so we see.
Says the Rebbe, this is the Baal Shem Tov. If I see someone's face dirty, it's a reflection, it's a mirror of my face. So if someone's my co-worker's table, or he's always a mess, but I'm not a mess, how is it possible that that's a reflection? Well, look in other areas of your life. Is your desktop on your computer is a mess maybe? If it is, perhaps you can relate to that person and say, you know, I know in my life, my computer, my desktop is a big mess. So I understand how mess is because you overwork, because you don't pay attention, but I want you to know that this is something that bothers me. When you come to that person from the point of view, the vantage point of humility, that you have the same challenge in other areas, there is a good chance that their shield, their wall will be removed and they will be listened to. Is that clear so far? So again, we have one, criticize with love. Number two, gentleness. Number three, humility. Last one is positivity. Positivity to me is very, very simple. You are not going to minimize and shrink his personality, but you can raise his personality. When someone, let's say, is late, you are not going to say to him, you're bad, you don't care about people's time, you have no respect for me, but rather you should say to him, there is a chance for you to do a lot more better. There is a chance of you to achieve much greatness if you will be sticking to schedule. In other words, it's all about positivity. Here it is, text number 15b. Doug, it's your turn.
15B.
Yes.
If you wish to offer criticism, do not tell the person how awful they are. If you do, if you do, they will despise you and not heed your words. This is the meaning of the verse. Quote, do not reprove scoffers. Meaning, do not reprove them by diminishing them, labeling them as scoffers. To the contrary, explain to them how unbenefiting it is for a wise person like them to behave in such a manner. This is the implication of the phrase, reprove the wise, meaning consider them as wise, and they will then heed your words and accept the critique.
So when we criticize, it has to be for lifting them up, not lowering them. So I hope that you are familiar with before even the class. I want to do a simple exercise. It's a little similar to the exercise here, but I'm going to do it a little different. Imagine me and my wife invited another couple out for dinner. While I'm sitting for dinner, I take out my phone rings and I'm on the phone for the next 15 minutes. The waiter comes in and she's trying to serve, what's your food choice? And I said, in a moment. Now my wife is trying to hint to me that it's disrespectful. Our guests are also, they feel out of place, but I couldn't care less.
Animal soul.
Animal soul. 15 minutes went by. What happened? Should she criticize when, how, and where?
In private later.
In private later.
Yeah.
How will she criticize?
I don't appreciate what you did. I mean, it's disrespectful to talk to other people. And I didn't feel comfortable that you were on the phone.
Okay, and when is later?
When they're home, when the friends are not there.
Okay,
My
in
husband
private.
Yeah.
What?
My husband sleep.
Anyone else? Anybody else?
You should call him on the phone.
She should call him on the phone.
She's got the bathroom closed.
Because he's on the phone too, huh?
In reality, it'll be in the car on the way home.
Well, he could escape.
Yeah, yeah, you can't get away at that time.
All right, so let's go through the 4 steps. Will she do it out of love?
If she loves them.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
She will live out of anger love.
Ah, anger. Will she be speaking to him in a gentle voice and gentle words? No. Will she be humble when she speaks to him? No. Will there be any positivity?
That's how long they're married.
You know what happens? No, it does not.
I don't care.
You know what happens?
Yes, it was.
There'll be a world war because he will refuse to listen to criticism. Yes.
Ask Sarah what she would.
Rabbi would say it was a very important call. There was nothing I can do.
It's true.
I'm sure you came across some.
Oh, it happens. Yeah, yeah. So I need your help. How do you do it out of love in the right time, with gentle voice, with humility and positive? Because just a minute, I'm going to be direct. I'm going to not criticize, but I'm just going to share with you that the way you describe does not qualify any of the 4 as you admitted. Yes.
Say probably the first thing to do is say, you know, I've had that happen. I'm just curious, was that something really important? You start off trying to understand what happened and why it was so necessary to do that. And then you make a decision at that point whether it needs to be progressed to a criticism.
Okay, so that's going to qualify which one of the 4?
Love
Love. Because,
and gentleness, I guess.
and gentleness. Is there humility there?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, a little bit.
All right. Did I show with you my story with the perfume at Bodine's? I shared over here, no? One day I wanted to show appreciation to my wife. So I walked into Bodine's Friday afternoon and I started looking at the perfume store. I shared that. And one of the clerks, the ladies there, young lady, she said, "May I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for a nice, good perfume." She said, "For what?" I said, "As a gift for my wife." She says, "Can you tell me a little more?" I says, "My wife, you know, and I want to buy that." So she said to me, "Is there an occasion? Is this for an occasion, anniversary, birthday?" I says, "No." She said, "So what's the reason?" I says, "Because I love my wife. She cares for my children. I want to show appreciation." So I hear a murmur with the other ones that this guy thinks we don't know. He probably committed a crime that he's trying to atone to make up for it.
So did you get it?
They think that you only buy either for a birthday occasion or to make up for
I'm
something.
sorry.
Another example would be to bring an example of a.
Here is my experience. And I may not be correct, but I would just wait a while before I respond because you're very passionate at that time. It's very insulting. It's very insulting. So first you take your time, you wait. I wouldn't say stay overnight because it's not healthy for a relationship between a husband and wife not to be in peace overnight. But at least you take your time. And then you turn to the wife and say, "Would you like a cup of coffee, a cake? Is there something I can serve you with?" Now they see in action that you love them. It's not just words. After, if they say, "No, I'm not interested, I ate enough," you say, "Well, I would like to eat something. Would you like to join me?" So now we're sitting over food and relaxing, diffuse the harshness, the pain. if you find that you are unable to speak because it's so enraging, you shouldn't have the conversation. If you find that she's very tired, you shouldn't speak, you shouldn't carry the conversation. It's not appropriate. Assuming you both are willing to have a conversation for the next 20 minutes, you say, can I share with you what my experience is? And if she gives you permission, that's called gentleness and humility, because you're not there attacking them, you're asking permission. Once you ask permission, if they give you, if they don't, you say, okay, something is on my heart. Whenever you're ready, let me know. What happens is you gave them respect, you're not attacking them, and you're not trying to lower them. And then you say to them, I want you to know my perspective. You don't talk about them, you talk about the way you feel and not what you experience. Hopefully that works. In my case, it always works, but I hope it should work. I know with my children, it also works. When I speak in a gentle tone and I say to them, this is how I feel. I had yesterday a dispute with one of my kids, and we ended up in very good terms. But the amazing thing was, an hour later, he called. I said to him, I want to come to your bed later on. He says, yeah, you should come. An hour later, he said to me, I have a deal for you. And what's the deal? He was willing to do everything I asked for. In other words, it took him just 15 minutes to realize that I meant well, that I was for his benefit, and he should be respecting his father. It diffused the whole situation. That's my experience. Let's get to the end of the. So the idea of guiding with positivity is to lift them, to realize that an experience when someone goes through is just for their benefit, either to a reflection that's something on you to work on, or for you to help them grow. There's one area that we didn't talk about. All I talked about tonight is how to criticize others, how to receive criticism. How will you be willing to accept criticism? So we need to, don't worry about, we don't have the time. Don't worry about how it's delivered. Try to not get distracted by the words, but by the issue itself, and realize whether they are right. If they are not, correct them, but at least be willing to open up to listen. And realize, just like you criticize others, people will criticize you. And if you want people to respect you and pay attention to what you have to say, you need to pay attention to what others have to say in the same way. And therefore, that will hopefully work the other way around.
Lesson 5, the art of influence. 1. The Torah entrusts each of us with a duty to care for the welfare of others. Within this culture of care, Judaism emphasizes the importance of positively influencing others to help them reach their full potential and become greater forces for good. 2. Criticism that stems from a desire to control or a need to showcase expertise or superiority is unlikely to succeed. Likewise, criticism that flows from anger is unlikely to be effective. 3. While our initial motivation to critique may be to protect our interests, our words will be more effective if we ground them in care and love. When people feel that the speaker genuinely cares about their well-being, they become receptive to the message. 4. Even when our words are infused with love, if the listener isn't in the right frame of mind to hear them, it's better to postpone the conversation. 5. If our words are perceived as an attack or attempt to control, people will find ways to dismiss them. Therefore, it's essential to guide gently, using a delicate tone and tentative language. 6. Instead of positioning ourselves as superior figures fixing others, it's more effective to identify a related flaw in ourselves and direct our words inward as well. A collaborative spirit is more likely to inspire change. 7. The doctrine of divine providence teaches us that noticing faults in others is not accidental. but personally relevant. God reveals to us specific flaws in others to indicate that we harbor a version, even if a much more subtle one, of that vice ourselves. 8. An effective way to offer critique is to emphasize a person's virtues and highlight how their actions are unbefitting of someone of their stature.
And next week, God willing, we will be discussing the art of forgiveness. How to forgive people.
Remember, Rabbi, the comedy show? I forgive you.
No, we're not bringing this up here.